Well, hello everybody, and welcome to my channel. I'm Teresa. I'm an illustrator and comic artist, and today I'm doing my one and only Hangout on Google Hangouts, and I'm here with my friends. We have Yann from Barcelona. Say hi.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
And I'm getting the noise from the actual thing. 1 second. Oh, I now understand what everyone's talking about. Okay, and we have also Scott over there.
Hello. How's it going?
I don't know where you are actually. Where
I'm
are
here
you?
in Washington State in the United States,
Nice.
way over on the West Coast.
And finally, we have Mike in the Illinois area. Am I right about that one?
Yeah, that's right. Right smack in the middle of it. Corn and cows and me. That's what's down here.
Sounds perfect.
Sounds
And
pretty egotistical now that I say it out loud. I'm the only thing here, just me and the cows.
He's all alone with the cows. It's a sad situation. So before we start, we're going to do the typical YouTube thing. And where can people find you?
Well, I'm over on YouTube as Yannimal, which is YANNEMAL. Same name on Instagram and Twitter if you want to keep up with my exploits.
I'm on Instagram, pretty active there under Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. And you can also find me and my partner in crime, David Fleming, at our website, I'dRatherBeDrawing.com.
Very nice. Like that.
And you can find me at Instagram and just about anywhere else, Twitter, YouTube, at Mike Emirates, and or in the middle of a field with a bunch of cows in Central Illinois.
Partying it up.
Illinois if you see cows, Mike's probably around.
True. I have heard tale of this.
Oh, Dave is in the chat. Hey, Dave. So the question, this was suggested by Mike, but I've tweaked it a little bit. And the question we're going to be talking about today is basically building an audience online or connecting with people online. So like making friends, finding collaborators, building an audience, all of those things all together in one place. So my first question is, are you attempting to build an audience at the minute, or are you more like trying to make friends, find collaborators?
I think it's a bit of both. It feels weird at my stage to say I'm building an audience and I have fans and things like that, because I still just feel like just a normal person posting their art on Instagram and everything. But I think it's hand in hand. An audience is a cool byproduct, I think, of connecting with other artists and people online. I don't know.
Nice. What about you, Yann? What do you think?
I'm definitely at the stage where I should be thinking about building an audience, because I've got a comic book that is as good as finished, just the dialogue and like the post-production bit. So it's definitely something that I should be thinking about, but having been online for 3 years, Instagram is doing okay. YouTube is just slowly doing its thing, moving towards 200. So yeah, I just kind of do my own thing, and I'm very happy with that. But I probably should put in a little bit more effort.
Okay, and what about you, Mike? What do you think?
I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm definitely trying to build an audience. have been, but also feel a lot like Scott, where I think it should be kind of a byproduct of what you're already doing. So I'm trying to thinking more in that direction of like focusing a lot more on the work, but presenting it in a different way. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, so that I'm still just doing the work and focused on the work, but the platform that I share it is a little bit more professional, polished, maybe encourages people to kind of, come back more instead of it getting lost in the ether of social media and stuff. But yeah, kind of in between.
Yeah. I find something like similar to what you guys are talking about, where I feel is that we live in a strange time where in the past there was the artist and there was the publicist and there was like all these people that made these different parts of the process, they did it professionally and they did it well. Whereas nowadays it's like we're trying to do absolutely everything. And especially thinking about comics, we're doing the everything. We're doing the penciling, the inking, the coloring, sometimes even the lettering. And then on top of that, we're promoting it, trying to print it, trying to sell it. And it's a bit overwhelming at times. Like I would say I'm trying to build an audience, but I can't put a lot of effort on it because at the end of the day, what I really care about is about making good comics. And I cannot spend half my day looking at analytics and caring so much about it because it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is cool for the artist and like the unique time that we live in is like, I think to build your audience, that's all you really need to do. I don't think you need to necessarily be, at least, I don't know, at my stage at least, I don't need to be looking at analytics and all that. People are interested in seeing, like when we all had friends in bands and they were practicing in the garage and everyone would like hang out with them like while they were working on their stuff. And then eventually you go see them at the bar and then eventually you go to their like CD release party. Social media is a way for everyone to kind of be in on that now. So I think it's okay to not at the creative level be like catering to this stuff, but just like say, this is my party and you're all invited and this is what is going on here, which I think, I don't know, for my 2 cents with social media, which I'm not always a huge fan of, creatives sharing what they're doing. I know it's biased, but I think is one of the more noble pursuits in social media. But I don't know. For my 2 cents.
You are the man wearing the T-shirt with your website on.
That's right. That's right. It's all about the art.
Yeah. I mean, it is a lot about the art. I do agree with that. But at times, you see some awesome artists that are in some corner sending stuff to one agent once a year. And how far are these people going to get?
Yeah.
As opposed to someone that is doing maybe work that is not as good, but they're putting in front of a lot of eyes.
Because we're creatives and we're making art, but yeah, at the end of the day, I'm hoping people buy it. That's for sure. I want to sell stuff. I'm not a super privileged person who can just make it and send it out there and just keep having fun with it. But I do think, as far as like to get back to what you were saying, the audience versus engaging community, I think for me at this point, the most enriching part of those two things has been the community aspect of it. Just where I'm at, and I've sold a few things and I have people watching what I'm doing and that's cool and everything, but I don't have a huge followership. But what I've kind of gotten involved with like the 100s and you guys and my buddy with the website and stuff, I feel like I've personally as an artist gotten a lot more out of that half of social media at this point. I don't know about you guys.
No, I can totally agree with that because like I feel like one of the reasons why I've held off on going all out with like art tutorials and like the typical path people tend to take on YouTube as artists, like trying to garner an audience. I've just kind of stayed away from it because I have a full-time job. Like I'm just trying to put the hours in. I don't always have a whole lot to say, and like I'm having a good time, and so I'm happy with the people who are watching it who are genuinely interested. But yeah, that whole balance of like just trying to find your feet first before you, I don't know, like I think it's also like one of those questions because there are people who do get very famous on YouTube, and there are a lot of there's a lot of people who are in it for the fame. Like you see them trying to do all this YouTube stuff or all this social media stuff, and there's just not a lot behind it, And it's like I'm just happy to get to finish a comic book. That's hard enough. And I also feel like because comic books tend to take so much time, I don't find they particularly lend themselves very well to being online all the time. Unless you're someone who is extremely talkative and always has something to say, and can always pull a topic up and just go at it. Unless you have that personality. Like for myself, it's like, well, I'm pretty social, but in bursts.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you make content for YouTube, which I do enjoy the editing and all that stuff. But I do find like, yeah, but you're just kind of sitting by yourself in a room like I am right now, holding your phone, And so I do feel like if you have that kind of personality that can just actually imagine that you're talking to an audience and just completely engage and make that seem natural, like by all means go for it. But
Yeah.
I don't know, just kind of
I think
enjoy
you made
doing
a
my
really
thing.
good point about kind of you got to really know who you are and what you're trying to do before you start building an audience. I think that's probably one of the most important things because you see, like you were mentioning, the people on YouTube that are just kind of throwing darts at a wall pretty much like, oh, I'm going to do a tutorial and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You can tell they're really just chasing the following, the fans. They're not
Yeah.
as concerned about the work, and they build big channels that what are they actually doing? Like they're not even really producing animations or comics or whatever it was that they said they wanted to do in the beginning. Now they're just producing YouTube
Yeah.
content and not actually doing the thing. You see it a lot actually with the websites too. I don't want to call anybody out because I still think they're doing great work and they're very helpful to people trying to get into anything, comics, animation, whatever. But there's a few sites in particular that they cater to comic artists and creating comics, but the people that run the site don't create comics. They create comic art and like pinups and stuff. But it is strange to see that kind of like it seems like there's a certain type of person that's drawn to that. Like I want to be involved in this. I want to be a part of this, but I don't actually want to do it. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like I want to create YouTube content about it. I want people to think that I'm this cartoonist, but I don't actually want to make comics. It's weird. It's a weird thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that you really should know who you are and what you're trying to say, what you're trying to do with your art before you start building an audience. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to everybody. You might be going in one direction and then pull yourself in another, and you're going to lose half of that audience, or you could.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say you will, but I've experienced that. I was dabbling in all kinds of stuff for a long time, and really focused purely on let me build an audience. That seems to be what I need to do first, and all those projects failed like completely. It wasn't until I settled into comics, and I say settled into, not settled on. It was a decision that I made that, hey, this is what I should be doing. This is like the thing I should have been putting most of my time into in the first place. And when I did that, and I just approached it as like, hey, I'm just a dude. I love this thing. I should have been doing this whole time, but I wasn't. I'm going to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. It was like at that point, my life changed. And I met all of you, and I got involved in the hundreds, and like things actually happened and stuck,
Yeah.
I feel like when you really don't know, just keep exploring. Just figure yourself out. Otherwise you're leading everybody else over that cliff with you, and that's not fair to them either.
I do think it's okay though to like what you did, be exploring that stuff on YouTube,
Sure.
like get out there and put your stuff out there and get it figured out. But something that you both kind of pointed out, I think that is an interesting thing to me that I've thought a lot about with creating content, which sounds funny to say that because it's not just about creating content to like get followers, but creating content because we enjoy making videos for YouTube. We enjoy sharing our art and everything. So creating content isn't a job. It just becomes a fun part of the game, I think.
Yeah.
But a weird kind of rabbit hole that I do see a lot of artists doing is catering mostly just to other artists, which you both kind of hit on. And like you said, Yann, like I hesitate to just kind of do the tutorials. Plus, I'm not that personality, much like what you were saying. And like when if your followership ends up being just other artists, which is great for building community, but when the time comes to sell your stuff and 100 people have 100 Kickstarters going at the same time, you want to support everybody. This community is awesome, but yeah, find that a weird thing, and that's why like Sketch Alona, your series,
Oh,
I
yeah.
always really enjoyed and took a lot of inspiration from that in a way that's like not necessarily just let me talk to you for a while about this thing, but like here's another aspect of my life that is also a part of this thing, and let me just take you along for the ride, and just finding different aspects that not just other artists, you know, are going to be intrigued by, because there's a lot of people putting really beautiful art online, and for people who aren't artists, there's a lot of cool stuff for them to see that isn't necessarily this stuff. So that is a weird thing, a hurdle for artists, I think, to figure out.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, you need to know what you want before you start making content for other people, because otherwise you're just gonna be running around asking people, "What do you want from me?" And you see that a lot actually in social media. Like, "Oh, what should I upload next? What should I do next?" It's like, well, you should know what you want to upload next. I mean, doing it sometimes is okay, but I see some creators that are constantly saying like, "Let me know what guys like, and I'll do it." And it's like,
Oh yeah.
shouldn't you be doing what you like to do? But I would like to address Dave's comment. He asked a question on the chat. He said, well, he was commenting on what we were talking about a while ago. He says, I agree that I want my audience to grow organically, but does anyone have any suggestions to increase eyes on videos subscribers?
Definitely. Regularity. do whatever you're doing on a very consistent schedule, whether that's daily or weekly or monthly or whatever. Pick a day or a theme, something, and do that thing all the time. I've noticed that helps every single time. Couple examples, like I was doing a daily character challenge before I started the hundreds, and because I was doing it every single day and keeping up with it, I suddenly built an audience that was waiting for that next character. They were waiting for that next drawing, because you could start to see the same people pop up, you know, on each post, or at least now and then. Same thing with the hundreds, you know, started seeing the same group of people popping up on those daily hundreds videos. I did a weekly hangout thing for a little while early on in the hundreds with a couple people from a different group, and again, same people started tuning in every week at that time. It's consistency. People like consistency, and so you got to look at it. You got to look at your own, I guess, business model, for lack of a better term, from a consumer perspective. You know, if you like a TV show, do you want to tune in at the same time every week, or do you want to keep checking TV Guide and whatever to see when it's going to be on next? Like, no, you want to know every day, Thursday when I get home from work, I'm going to watch this show or whatever. So if you can do that for other people, you're gold. They're going to tune in. Somebody has a slot that's open that needs filling. That sounded terrible, but yeah, I hope you're
Moving right along, I completely agree with most of what you just said.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the key, and I struggle with that on Instagram and everywhere, is regular posting, because I finish it and then I post it, and that might be a week or 2 weeks or different times, but yeah, completely agree with that one.
Yeah, I think it's similar to anything in life, not to get like, well, not life is too broad, but you know, like with anything you're trying to accomplish, if you want to progress in your career or learn languages, or learn how to draw or build an audience, it's just showing up every day and doing good quality work every day. I'm not saying you need to upload every day onto social media, you know, that would probably help, but I think that's a bit of slavery, and at the end of the day you're playing their game rather than your game, if that makes sense. So consistency, but I would say don't go too crazy if you have a day job and you want to keep your personal relationships, etc. Like, for example, with YouTube, I try to upload every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and that's why we're doing this stream on Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And that helps me, you know, having an exact time and an exact day. Is like on Sunday I start thinking about it. I go like, I could do this, and then Monday I make the video, and Tuesday I upload it, and it becomes a habit. And habits just are easier to integrate in your life without it disrupting absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So routine, I would say, is my key for everything, really. Everything I do.
It becomes a habit for the people that are watching too, and that's in a weird manipulative kind of way, that's important for building an audience. You want whatever you're doing to be a habit for them as well.
Yeah, it's amazing because I see the same people commenting at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a habit for me, but it's a habit for them as well, because I can tell like, oh, this person is gonna, and except for Jan, obviously, because he's chaotic and he will comment 3 months later. But, you know, but in general terms, I think that's true, and it's not like horrible manipulative thing. It's just like humans are creatures of habits,
Yeah. Yeah.
and both the creators and the audience will be. Okay, I think that's all I
I
have.
agree.
Do you have
Oh,
any other
oh,
tips?
totally. Like to add on to that, like look at what Jan's doing. Like, because Jan, you don't have like that strict of a schedule with your stuff, but when you put out one of the Sketchalona videos, it's awesome. Like it's well put together. It's a mini documentary experience. You know, that's something that you really look forward to no matter when it comes out. It's special, and so I think that's another great example. Is whatever it is, make it good, which I know is really subjective, but do the best you can. Find your own way of making what it is that you're making. You know, like and I think that's a great example because you look at all the hundreds videos. Jan was doing those videos, and they were completely different from everyone else's. You know, we were all just staring at a camera. This is what I did today, or what I didn't do today. Jan was like, "Well, I'm going to go out and do a tour and show you little sketches in between, and do a little." It was so unique and so different. Like, I don't care when he uploads them. I got to watch them. Like, I don't care if it's every day, every week, or once a year. Like, I'm going to watch that video. So there's that too. Beyond.
Yeah, for sure. That Sketchalona was a big influence on a show I'm trying to kind of get off the ground again, but drawing inspiration with just,
cool.
You know, you live in a unique area, show that to people because it's going to be an inspiration to the art that you're doing, and people enjoy that. So
I loved it. I watched that. Sorry, I was just gonna say like I love the show you did with the Tesla Museum. Was it Tesla Museum?
Oh yeah.
That was awesome. That was
Thanks.
great.
It was a lot of fun. My computer crashed, so I lost some stuff that I kind of got to redo the intro and some other things like that. But I'm excited about that series, and that's another thing that I think we're talking about. Is it's not just something where I'm like, oh, this is going to get me a bunch of followers. I'm like, I sat and I thought, I'm like, what would be fun to do, and what could I give back if I'm not much of a teacher? And just like what we're talking about, trying to figure out what do you want out of it, you know. And I just want to say one thing too, real quick. I'm sorry, like. As all of us, I think we've done it so far, as we're talking about social media, we're obviously artists first, but social media and what we're doing there has a definite business side to it. And I think all of us, as we start to approach and talk about that business side, we get apologetic and we feel dirty and we're like, I don't, for lack of a better term, you're small business. And it's like, no, like, I don't think we should be ashamed of that. I think it is cool what we're providing, and we're not manipulating people by trying to get them to watch our videos. And this isn't bad stuff. I know we're used to like giant corporations and commercials on TV and subliminal messages and all that stuff, but I know what all of you are creating, and it's all really good stuff. So you should be sharing that. And I don't know, I do it too. And we get apologetic when we talk about the business side. And as an artist, when other artists are talking, I think it's always cool to just, when they're transparent, they're like, yeah, good way to get people, because I will translate to this later. And you sort of, like you said, we have to be not just the artist, but the business person about it, and the promoter, and the, dirty salesman and all that stuff. So, but anyway.
True.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you guys were saying earlier. For me, it's like the dirty salesman, the teacher, the whatever. I do tutorials because I am a teacher and I like to teach. So I don't do tutorials because I see like, oh, how-to videos are very popular. No, it's because I actually enjoy doing that. And, if you're a dirty salesman, do, dirty salesman stuff. Be yourself.
No, but
That's
that does kind of home in on something I just wanted to say, is like, you do kind of have to find the thing that you enjoy. Just like Mike was saying, like he ended up on comics not as a choice, because that's what he enjoys the most. And that's kind of how I end up on comics as well a couple of years ago. But that's how also my videos are. I have nothing against explaining someone how to do something, but I find it a lot more engaging for myself when someone actually asks me that question. Like, I'm not going to make tutorial videos of my own, But the kind of editing I do is just, well, I like editing. I just like editing little videos. So that's what I want to make. Because, and yeah, it's the whole, like, if you can just figure out the thing that you love doing the most first, which is probably the hardest thing. But if you could just figure that thing out first, everything is going to be so much easier, because if you're going to spend 1,000 hours doing something and it's just for money, like,
Yeah.
it better be a lot of money, because otherwise you're just gonna lose interest.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I think we can all at least recall something that we've done just for money, and it never feels as good.
Every day I go to my job.
Yeah, but that's important too. Actually, I heard a quote recently that's like really, I like it a lot. I don't know who I heard it from, and it's racking my brain because I should find it. But they said, "You do what you have to do until you earn the right to do what you want to do." So, I just think it's perfect. Like you kind of sometimes do have to do some things that maybe aren't the ideal thing, but the necessary thing. And so I think for a lot of artists out there, the tutorial route, YouTube, all of this, it feels like a way to kind of maybe it's not exactly what they want to do, but it's better than the day job, or it's better than the alternative. And so they want to make that work, because even though maybe it's not the greatest thing in the world, it's like this can maybe pay the bills, and it's creative versus not. But you could also argue, and I know a lot of people agree, that sometimes it's good to just have a day job that's not creative. You don't have to focus on any of that stuff. You could just, when it is time to be creative, you're more creative. I could agree with that too.
Yeah,
I find I've done some of my best work when I'm working a regular day job and I'm looking for that little 5-10 minutes to sneak away and write something down or sketch on the back of a receipt or something. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and Yann kind of put it, I don't know. I get down on myself about that, like, oh, I have to go to the job. I wish I was just doing the creative stuff. But you said it at the beginning pretty well, Yann, and which like made me feel better about it. But like we go and just like what you're saying, we go and do that, and we're engaging on YouTube and we're engaging all these things, but it's not like our primary focus, because I've got the day job, like bills are taken care of. I'm making the comic, and that's the important thing. I mean, that's why we're all here. So I have such respect for everyone who is hustling to who doesn't have the day job, and because it is hard to kind of earn a buck and do all these things. So anybody putting out tutorials there to get an audience or anything, definitely not talking down on any of those people. They're doing what comes naturally, or what they need to do, or all that stuff. But it's just, for me, I'm not very good at that. But
sure,
yeah, working the day job for now while you got to, instead of being down on myself about it, it seems like a better thing to just go to think positively and go, cool, now the bills are taken care of, I can just focus on this, because I haven't put a lot of energy into the audience side of thing or the money making side of thing. Like, I've put more into the creating stuff thing, which I think at this point is a smarter thing to do. So
yeah. You see it a lot too. There's quite a few creatives that are doing really, really well, who are doing things that they definitely don't want to be doing. I know a couple creators specifically, but again, I don't really want to point them out because we're live, and I don't want to. It's like personal stuff about them, but they don't like social media. They don't like doing YouTube or any of that stuff. But it's like they are trying really hard to make the comics thing the only thing, and so it's like sort of that balance of like eating your frogs. They found a way to monetize something that they can manage to do and put their energy into to build the audience and build the business.
Did you say eating the frogs?
That's what I was thinking.
You never heard that before?
Is that
No.
like eat your vegetables? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
But frogs
I
are
don't know what you
delicious.
guys are doing in Central Illinois, but
Like
there's
the
cows
cows
and
and the
corn there.
frogs. I don't
It's
know.
breakfast every morning. You guys
Stick to
don't
the
eat
cows and
frogs?
corn, brother.
Can imagine
I'm
just
right.
like your mom when you were little, eat your frogs.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't remember.
everyone else was like eating broccoli or something.
Maybe I should stick with vegetables. That's not the first time that I've said that, and people are like, "What?" So maybe I just made it up. I don't know. It
Sounds
seems
like
like
it,
a
yeah.
horrible thing to do, though. Although I don't
Eating
know why it would
frogs.
be necessary.
I'm right next to France, so eating frogs is not that far.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I know. Apparently, there's a high French population in Central Illinois.
We're not cannibals. Okay. Oh,
All
God.
right.
So sorry, what were you
Um,
saying?
I don't even know
Something about
anymore.
eating frogs. I don't know. No, he was saying about you have to do what you have to do. Like that was the frog thing, right?
Yeah.
But that is a necessary evil, I think, whether you're working a day job so you can be creative or hustling
Right.
on the side so you can be creative. I think what most of us are saying is that people, even like the people who are comic creators, and that's what they do professionally, a lot of times they're still hustling in a lot of different
Yeah.
ways, whether it's YouTube or this or that, to make ends meet. And that's something that as artists, I think we do have to come to terms with, and why we social media and why we make YouTube and try to figure out how to monetize and build an audience. Because when it does come down to it and we start hitting our stride and we're making the comics we really want to be making, we still got to make money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. That's the bigger point that I was trying to make, is that dream scenario that people think about all the time, where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna keep doing this and maybe someday I can just make my comics. That'll never happen. That's a
Yeah.
fantasy that no one has. Anybody that you look up to, even the greats, there was something else they were doing that they had to pay the bills or make a sacrifice or something like that. Even
Yeah.
like some of the great artists back during like the classical era, yeah, they were making art all the time, but they were indentured to kings and queens, nobles, royalty. They were painting what they wanted them to paint. They weren't painting what they actually wanted to do. But in exchange for that, they were given homes and food and whatever. So no matter who you look at, that there's some sacrifice being made. No one has had the dream. Very few people have had the dream. You got to be
Neil
very
Adams,
wealthy, I think.
I see Neil Adams still at so many Comic Cons,
Right.
and he's still hustling. He's still selling his wares. He's doing commission sketches for people.
Yeah.
He's not just sitting back selling his comics, relying on that. Even though a lot of people consider him on the Mount Rushmore of comics or whatever.
He's on Patreon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Jim Lee is
gotta
on
hustle.
Twitch as well. Like
Yeah.
Jim Lee is on Twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
That
hear
blew
him at
my
the
mind.
beginning of all of his streams. He's like, all right, here we go. What do we do?
And that dude's day job is specifically big corporate comics, and
Yeah.
that guy's still hustling on the side,
Yeah. So everybody's got to work somehow. I think the ones that make it work kind of creatively, that they create a job for themselves. They're creating a business that they still have to go to work every day. They still have to pay their taxes on and all that. It's not all
frogs.
yeah, frogs and comic books.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can also like where you see one. So I can say, yeah, Jim Lee's on Twitch, and on the other hand, Robert Crumb lives in a cabin in the south of France. So you can choose what you want to do. There are as many careers as there are people, and especially when we're talking about comics, which is a massive field that spans across different continents with different industries, different people doing it in a million different ways. If you don't want to do social media, then don't do it. So I think there's a little bit of an obsession online where people say, oh, you have to build an audience, you have to be out there. But I don't know, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but every now and again, because I do follow these, like there's certain podcasts I listen to, and every now and again they have an editor on, or someone who actually hands out the jobs, like in corporate comic bookdom.
Mhm.
And every now and again, one of them does point out, like, yeah, these days, instead of just checking out submissions, we do look at your following, like the built-in audience that you're gonna bring along. We do look at,
Mhm.
have you already done a Kickstarter or not successfully? We do look at, like, have you been doing this consistently over a period of time, or is this just something that just popped into your head and you just happened to bump into us?
Mhm.
So I do think they will check you out online, because the truth is we all check out everyone online.
Yeah.
speaking of which is like, like working as like a tech help desk person, and then like slash social media, and like doing all this stuff for my job here in Barcelona. Um, we've heard colleagues have conversations with angry customers where they ask them for their name, like the typical, like, I want to know your name and I'm going to talk to your supervisor. And then the next thing you know, you can hear from the conversation that the customer is checking them out on Facebook. They're
Whoa.
stalking
Oh
them on
no.
Facebook.
Oh my
Like
god.
these things happen, so of course your prospective employer is going to do the same thing,
Yeah.
So yeah. On that happy
Yeah.
note, I can confirm that frogs are actually delicious, by the way.
See, it's not even hard to
there.
eat frogs. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's the
This
best
is
chicken.
exactly what I was saying. Some people love to eat frogs, so
It's really good.
there's
Just the
It's really
legs.
good. Chicken
We might
wings.
have to change the title of this show.
to eat
Social
your
media
frogs.
and eating your frogs.
That's very catchy. I think that's almost clickbait, I would say.
Yeah, eating frogs on social media.
I think I should change it to eating frogs with my friends online. It's like create a really, really clickbaity. If you guys send me a picture of you eating a frog or pretending to eat a frog, I can Photoshop it. I think that'll definitely work towards building a big audience. So,
It could work.
and
I agree. It's all the rage right now.
yeah, Dave says he finds it hard to eat frogs.
All right, we're gonna start a
That's why the
frog
analogy
challenge.
works.
No, but wait, this is a dad joke. He hasn't finished. He says he finds it hard to keep them down. But
Jeez.
Nice going, Dave.
Nice. Okay, so moving on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is not only building audiences, which is something that maybe you should or shouldn't do. We don't know. But what about connecting with people online? Have you got experience connecting with people? Well, obviously, I met you online, guys. So obviously, I have some experience connecting with people, collaborators, etc. For me, this is the most important thing. The fact that I got into the 100s and I met you guys. We put an anthology together on Kickstarter, and all these things that we've done as a community for me are very valuable. And yes, it is great to build a community, and it is great to have an audience. But for me, having meaningful connections of people that get together and get stuff done together is one of the most important thing. And finding that online is quite hard. I don't know what your experience with it is.
Yeah, very similar to you. I think if I can kind of find a community and engage and be active with people online, I feel strongly that like anybody can, because this stuff does not come naturally to me. I'm a personable enough person, but online interaction has never felt like a real thing to me. I was never very active on social media or any of that stuff or meeting people. Didn't really grow up with computer stuff around. Getting into the art stuff, it felt like, well, this is a necessary evil. Let's do this. Let's start posting. And very quickly that changed. And yeah, you start to see a supportive community around art. That's why I said before, I think artist sharing on social media is one of the cooler things, because I honestly don't see a lot of the awful negativity that's on social media, because I'm there to share art, to see other people's art, and to engage in that community. And it's an awesome community. I don't know exactly where I was going with all that, but yeah, like it can be done. I think it's really necessary. Like I said before, with my art career, like that's been the most beneficial side of the whole social media thing, is meeting other people. So yeah, I think it's really important to engage folks on social media or online or whatnot.
It's a good point.
Mhm.
I'm
Yep.
the same way, which might seem weird because I've been so social for years now. But when I first started the hundreds, I didn't want to. I wanted no part of the social aspect of it. The videos, all that made me so nervous. And like, I felt like an idiot. I felt like this is stupid. The YouTube's going to come after me and they're all going to hate me. And then I'm going to cry and hide forever. But it was the exact opposite. It was really cool and kind of liberating, because it's like you're not just in your own little bubble, pretending like well, not pretending, but you're doing your thing, but you're not actually telling anybody you're doing your thing. So are you doing it? Like, for real? Are you doing it? But once I started putting it out there, I was like, oh wow, people think my stuff is cool. I'm making friends, I'm getting stuff done, and it was like it felt essential almost. Like
Hmm.
we don't have as many. At least where I live, we didn't have as many like get together kind of things where artists could meet other artists. And if there were, they're real niche kind of things. Like maybe there'd be, there was often like a hardcore underground art kind of scene in Chicago. And I knew a couple people that got involved, but it was really like fine art, like feelings and woo woo kind of stuff, which I mean, I think we
Feelings.
all
Oh my God.
well, I think we all go, dabble in that a little bit as we're growing as artists. But at some point, I got really disinterested in that, like the gallery scene, the fine art scene, that kind of thing. I didn't really care for any of it. You got a lot of people just like throwing paint at a canvas and saying like, "This expresses the hatred I felt for red paint," and these aren't my people. but But then I
I
found
was
you guys, and it was like, yeah, people that think and make conscious decisions. Yes, that's the people I want to interact
I
with.
mean, that's a big statement. People that think, I don't know. Sometimes.
where those thoughts go, who knows? But we're thinking about stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, we
That's
don't
the
feel, we
important
just
part.
think.
I was at a comic convention and went to a talk, and I forget now. I know Kyle Strom was there from Spread, but a guy was talking about going to art school. And in art school, there were two types of people: the berets and the work shirts. And the berets were standing out front smoking cigarettes, talking about their feelings.
Yeah.
And the work shirts were getting dirty and always had stuff underneath their fingernails. And I thought for a long time I wanted to be a beret. But turns out, no, comics. Get
Yeah.
your work shirt on and get dirty. But
Yep.
I thought that was funny.
Totally. I can
So
definitely
true.
relate to that. People like I didn't get along with many people in my school either, which kind of bothered me. It made me feel like maybe there wasn't a place for me because I was a work shirt for sure, and I would show up like having done not just the homework but like hundreds of other drawings. Just like, do I get it? Did I do it right? Is this how this goes? And people would be like, "Who the hell is this guy? Like, what the? You're actually drawing stuff? Like, this is supposed to be an easy degree. I'm just gonna coast." But yeah, a lot of berets.
A world full of berets and frog eating. Mike. Fights them all.
It sounds like a summer movie.
Avoiding the woo
It sounds
woo
like we're hating.
feelings.
Yeah, it sounds like we're hating on the French in general. With like picking on frog
my
eating,
God,
on
you're right.
berets.
Uh-oh.
No.
I'm feeling animosity towards
I like
towards the
a
French
lot of
art scene.
French comics, so I apologize. You're all fine.
Nah. I have to say I love French comics.
Yeah.
I absolutely love them. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to like I'm not racist, type thing. I actually love French
I've got
comics.
French comics.
Oh, French comics right there. I have some Asterix and Obelix, so I can say whatever I want about frogs and berets.
I grew up with a French comic.
My best friend
It's
is
my
a French
neighbor.
comic.
I went to class with one,
Oh God.
No, but I have to say, like, it is tricky to find these communities online because sometimes you find these groups. For me, this was my experience. I found groups, and they are either super specific, or they are full of people that actually are not drawing or making comics. So they say, "Oh, cartoonist society," and you're like, "Okay," and nobody in there is drawing. Or you go into another one and it says something like, "People that draw comics in their spare time." It's like, "Oh, that's me," and you go in and it's so, I don't know. It's just it's not as specific. Whereas for example, the 100 Days is a good community because it's clear what you're going for. You're going for people that don't have a lot of time for their personal projects. They may be professional illustrators, or they may be people with other types of day jobs. But at the end of the day, what unites us is the fact that we have a personal project and we don't have time to work on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very powerful premise, and because it's people doing stuff and making comics, whereas other online groups are not as specific about what they want. It's just anybody writes, join my group.
And there's no barrier to entry either. There's no evidence of it. Whereas like the hundreds, you're doing the challenge, so people see like, oh yeah, they that's cool. They do that. At least now they're doing it. Like there's a lot of those groups you don't know who you're hanging out with. People say that they're writers, and it's like they write maybe once in a blue moon, or people say I'm a penciler. Okay, but like let's see your pencils. Whereas like the hundreds, everybody's showing up every day. Oh, that's the frog alarm.
Oh.
You gotta eat a frog.
Sorry,
They've come for you.
that's my street.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you guys think about making connections online? Do you have any tips or any tricks to find people and find communities where you can find collaborators and people to make projects with?
That's tough.
Any group that I've joined that was a result of like taking an online class or like doing the 100s challenge, like he said, like some sort of bar for entry, not just to be a gatekeeper, but so it's like, okay, we're all here for a more common thing than we just happen to find this on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's mostly been the 100s for me, but Comics Art and Relationship for a while was a good one too, where we all like took a class and then had this community, and like that seemed to be a better thing and engaging than just kind of a random, yeah, I do art, click on this, and people just sort of dump their stuff once in a while.
Mhm.
But the other thing I found is if you're searching around for a thing in your community where people are getting together drawing and you can't find one, or the right type of group online, it really takes like human beings making those things happen. Even with the 100s, that's a great group and it's very engaging, but it's not just as a result of there being a place where people can come dump their 100s videos. There's admin people like Mike and Marshall and Gaz and everybody who keeps those things going and make sure they don't get stale, and asking questions of the group and stuff like that, because those things can quickly become information dumps. So just thinking and it's a hard thing to do, but if you're not finding the right group online or the right place in your community, you might need to make it and kind of create that space.
Oh
That's
man,
actually
that's
a
a
very good
great
point.
point. Yeah.
If you can't find it, you might just have to, take on the mantle yourself. It's very true.
Even in groups that are as active as the hundreds, like sometimes it takes a member who's maybe not necessarily an admin or he hasn't even been there long, but to say like, hey, what do you think about this? Maybe we should, does anybody want to join this thing with me? And, because the hundreds it's anarchy. It's total anarchy. It's not anybody's group, like Kevin created it, but, it's volunteers have stepped up to do everything. There's no, even within the organization, there's no organization. Like a great example is this Discord. We've just started a Discord, and oh my God, we've got like all kinds of stuff going on there, and most of it's all just been ideas from other people. Like Teresa's doing a daily topic, which I think is one of the best things on the Discord right now. And she was just like, hey, why don't we do this? So I always tell people, if you want something, then just make it happen. Because the more you do it, then other people are going to follow along, and it'll grow into something more. I think a lot of people join groups expecting the group to be the thing that they need it to be, but it starts with you and you doing your own daily stuff and not relying on that other stuff. I'm sure, Teresa, you can relate to this, or maybe you have a different perspective on it, but there's something that's like very enriching for the individual when you try to help other people. Like sometimes doing stuff for other people ends up helping you. So if you think something would help you, try and do it for other people, And yeah, I don't know if any of that
Yeah.
makes sense, but
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree a lot with that, especially like when it comes to I think it was last week. Yeah, well, last week I made this video about feeling bad about my art. And
Oh,
so I got in touch with everyone on the Discord, on the 100 Discord, and also on the Comic Jam Discord, which is another comic collective that I'm part of. And I just asked them, like, oh, what do you guys think? I may make a video about this because I don't know, I'm feeling a bit down and I need a pick me up or a pep talk. So I'm going to make it myself. I'm going to make my own pep talk. And in the process of making that video, I started feeling better about my art. And
awesome.
and then a couple of people messaged me saying like, oh, I was going through the same thing and watching your video made me feel better. It's like, well, making the video made me feel better. So sometimes when you want something to happen, if you make it happen yourself, it happens.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're talking about being movers and shakers and having a hustle to do this and needing an audience and needing a community, then if you're not finding what you need, make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it and then tell everybody.
I
All right,
love
guys.
that
So yeah, it's a great podcast. All right, guys. So that's more or less the time that I was going for, about 1 hour. So I think I'm gonna let you go. It was a great chat, lots of good ideas. So to close up the discussion, let's go. Final thoughts and one last reminder of where people can find you. So Jan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, like the whole, you're gonna have to, spend a little time finding your little niche group if you have a niche thing. But if you can't find it, like you might just have to put the call out yourself and and just see if people flock to it, which is an awesome thing. And also like we were talking about earlier about creating the content and what kind of content. If you just focus on the thing that you enjoy doing the most, you're gonna last the longest. Like I've been making my kind of videos for years now, and maybe there will be a big following for them one day, maybe not. But in the meantime, I'm having a great time, and that's kind of what matters most.
Nice.
So,
And where can people find you after these
Yeah.
words of wisdom?
yeah, but that would totally ruin my, keeping my followers down. Should you want to follow me, it's at Yanimal, which is YANNEMAL, over on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What about you, Scott?
You actually, I've been thinking it for a while, but you hit it on the head at the end there. The best words of wisdom, I think, for if you're going to utilize social media, if you're not going to utilize social media, if you're making a video, if you're making your art, make it, then tell everybody. It's a great podcast as well that you should check out with Dan Barry. But I think it's just great advice to live by. You can't sit in a vacuum and just make this stuff. So whether you're down on social media or not, if you want to just go engage your community in person or online, you have to make it and then tell everybody. It's a two-part system, and you got to keep it going.
Nice.
And for me, I'd rather be drawing.com or I'd rather be drawing on Facebook. On Instagram, you can also find a lot of my work at Mr. Green Draws, mr.green draws. But if you do go to the I'd Rather Be Drawing stuff, you'll get two artists for the price of one. My buddy David Fleming is the co-founder over there, and he just had a book that he kickstarted as well. So a lot of activity on the website.
Nice. Thank you very much. And Mike, what about you?
Well, I just want to say I have nothing against French people or French comics, despite everything that has been said today. Some of my greater inspirations are the French comic artists, Mobius being a big one, Inky Below. Anyways, I'm just being goofy now. Yeah, I'd say the biggest takeaway for me in terms of building an audience is touching back on what we were talking about earlier. Know who you are, know what it is that you're trying to accomplish before you get really invested in trying to build an audience. Because for yourself, you want to build an audience that's going to continue to grow. So if you are not at a point where you feel you are going to be consistent, you stand the chance of losing all those people and having wasted all that time and hard work to get them there in the first place. And then two, for their sake, because if you change dramatically halfway through your period of trying to grow that audience, you might like not just disappoint those people, they might be kind of done. Like when you build up people's expectations and then you let them down so drastically, sometimes they don't come back. They don't trust you for the next thing, even if they like it. We got a lot of examples of stuff going on like that in TV kind of recently. A lot of people feeling very disappointed because things changed drastically. But yeah, anyways, that's my big takeaway. Know who you are, know what you're trying to do, then build an audience. If you don't know that yet, feel free to do whatever you want and explore, but maybe don't put the cart before the horse and focus on business stuff and audiences and social media. It doesn't matter. You just work on the work. Where can you find me? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Currently, my website is spacecatcomics.com, but it doesn't go anywhere very interesting. However, I'm going to redirect it in the nearest future. So you can write that down and go there in like a month or two.
Okay. And well, thank you very much, guys, for coming over to my channel for my one and only Google Hangout, because Hangouts is closing tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if there are any future methods to stream, we'll probably do one of these in the future. And as for me, my final thoughts is that go find friends online so that you can do live hangouts with them, like these ones. The times I've spent drawing or coloring that I would have gone crazy had it not been for a private hangouts are innumerable. And Yann, actually, in one of the hangouts, taught me how to color comics on Photoshop. So the things I've learned and the work I got done thanks to having friends and hangouts is amazing. So if you're listening and you're wondering whether you should build an audience, building an audience is great, but at the end of the day, making true connections with people instead of being in a pedestal like I have 1,000 followers. Well, 1,000 followers is not a lot, but you know what I mean, right? And that would be my final thought. Thank you so much, guys, for hanging out. And if you want to find me, this is my channel, so just subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Okay, so yeah, we're not live now.
Woohoo!